understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt, self-made hustler. I'm a beast. I'm a beast. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kales. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell. And every
JAYZ and R. Kelly collaborated on an album and a tour, The Best of Both Worlds. March of 2002 was the release date for the songs, the albums, with a subsequent tour to follow. This was supposed to be the biggest collaboration in music history. Two titans in the industry. R. Kelly, the king of R&B, JAYZ at the time, the king of hip-hop. The album was supposed to be released with great anticipation worldwide, and a tour was to follow. It was announced at Madison Square Garden at a press conference, and everything was slated to be in motion March of 2002. Arithmetic. Barry Hankerson was fired January 2002. Robert was to perform at the Winter Olympics, February of 2002. A day before he performed, it was released to the Chicago Sun-Times and to the media in Chicago, which went all over the world, that R. Kelly was in a sex tape with a 14-year-old Roshana Landfair, the niece of Sparkle. In March 2002, Robert and JAYZ were to release the biggest album since Thriller. The Best of Both Worlds was a collaboration with JAYZ and R. Kelly. Both writers, both producers on the album, and tours, media blitzes were all in motion for this to be the most phenomenal explosion in the music industry since the release of Thriller. In March of 2000, Barry Hankerson got AALIYAH the role in the movie Romeo Must Die. I knew when that happened, Barry's days were numbered. Then he got her in the second movie in February of 2002, Queen of the Damned. I knew he was absolutely fired at that point. Robert is the A-list artist. He is the goose that lays the golden egg. He is the empire. He was never going to appreciate Barry, who was his manager, getting roles for AALIYAH in movies, and he hadn't gotten Robert, R. Kelly, in any roles. Robert fired Barry January of 2002. In February of 2002, 1 month after Robert fired Barry Hankerson, he was to perform The World's Greatest at the Winter Olympics. The day before his performance, the Sun-Times released an article that there was a sex tape with a 14-year-old Roshana Landfair in the tape. The very first article that came out in the Sun-Times, it said her name, it said her age. I saw the article, that's how I knew about it. Then every subsequent article that they wrote, they left her name out. But the very first article that came out, they said her name. Barry was fired January of 2002. Robert performed February of 2002 in the Winter Olympics, and that's when the tape was released. Robert told those of us in his inner circle that he was playing basketball at Hoops. His gym bag was in his locker. The bag was stolen from his locker. The locker was broken into. The bag was stolen. Tapes were stolen along with jewelry and cash. Next thing we know, the tape is released. Robert told those of us in his inner circle, Barry Hankerson, Sparkle, and one other person, formed a takedown effort against him. They were behind it. He told me that back in 2002 when it happened.
What did you do? What was your reaction? Because you never told us.
Yeah, okay. So a lawyer called my home phone. I don't know how he got it, but he called me and he stated to me, there is a tape that possibly has one of your family members on it. And I would like for you to go to your sister and your brother-in-law and get them to acquire me as their lawyer so I can, defend them in this tape. I was like, absolutely not, because I don't know that that's my family member on that tape. So, okay. He said, I can send one of my associates over to show you. I was like, all right, send them. I called my oldest brother. I was like, yo, they saying it's a tape with somebody.
Jim DeRogatis says he received an anonymous tape in the mail. He watched it. He saw that it was porn. He turned it over to the police. How did a lawyer get the tape to call Sparkle? How did that lawyer get Sparkle's phone number? How did the lawyer even identify any female on the tape? No one had on name tags. If Jim DeRogatis did receive a tape anonymously and he looked at the tape, there's no way that Jim DeRogatis would have been able to identify anyone, any female on that tape, because he didn't know R. Kelly. He, according to him, didn't know anyone even associated with R. Kelly. So how does Jim DeRogatis look at a tape, know any female that's in the tape, can identify her by name, knows her name, knows who her aunt is, and has her phone number to call her? Why didn't, if it went straight to the police, how did it get to a lawyer? How does a lawyer identify who's on the tape? To the point where they know the person's name, they know the person is related to Stephanie Edwards, they have Stephanie Edwards' phone number, and they call her. She gets a call, and she allows this person to come to her home. A complete stranger calls you and says, I have a tape. I want to show you this pornography. Let me come to your home. And you invite them over? Lies. Jim DeRogatis receives a tape, sends it to the police. Somehow a lawyer gets a hold of the tape. How does anyone that does not know Robert, that is not inside Robert's inner circle, how would they know the name Rashana? How would they know Rashana is related to Sparkle? And how would they have Sparkle's phone number? Jim DeRogatis said he got a tape. He saw it was porn. He turned it over to the police. The only people that should have seen it is Jim DeRogatis and the police. How did a lawyer get a copy of the tape? If the lawyer got this copy of the tape, how was the lawyer able to identify anyone on the tape? No female had on clothes. No one had ID that they showed to the camera. How did you know anyone's name? How did you know their age? How did you know who their relatives were? The only way you would say it was Rashana, she was underage and she was related to Stephanie Edwards, you had to be inside Robert's inner circle. No one else would have had Sparkle's phone number. Very few people knew Rashana was related to Sparkle. Very few people knew who Rashana was or her age. So it's only a handful of people that would have had that information. Barry Hankerson would have had that information. Robert fired him. Robert allegedly owed him money from the Best of Both Worlds deal that Barry claims to have put together and had investments in. And Robert fired him just before the release of that album. And according to Barry, Robert owed him money. Sparkle was angry because she was fucking and sucking, menage a trois, group sex, left her husband Earl for Robert, brought all of her family onto Rockland Records, believing she was going to be the first lady of the label. She was going to marry him and have a kid. He was married to Dre and already had a child. That gives both of them strong motives to have constructed this story.
My parents' 50th anniversary, we did a big to-do for them, and that's how we came back together. Now that this has come back up, we back where we were again. Right. You know what I mean? Not speaking and what have you, but she's beautiful on the outside.
Rashana, her mother, her father, stopped speaking to Sparkle when she came out with her allegations. They understood very clearly. Sparkle terminated her relationship with RKELLY. She wanted her brother-in-law, her sister, her niece, and all family members to terminate their relationship with him out of loyalty. When the brother-in-law, the sister, and Rashana refused to walk away from RKELLY, months later, Sparkle said her niece was in a sex tape. The family stopped speaking to Sparkle. No one in the family had a relationship with her. Everyone in the family stopped speaking to Sparkle as a result of this. And she only had contact with one brother. Then she says in her own words, after the mother and father either died or something, then they started speaking again. And because she appeared in Surviving R. Kelly, the family stopped speaking to her again. The family has 100% stood against Sparkle. Rashana, the mother and the father, testified in legal documents in the 2002 case that was heard in 2008. It was not Rashana. Rashana signed legal documents. It's not her. The mother and father signed legal documents. It's not her. And they terminated their relationship with Sparkle for 23 years. And just started back speaking to her and then terminated it again once she decided to appear in Surviving R. Kelly. Rashana did not appear in Surviving R. Kelly. Rashana never went to the police and said she was a victim. She's 35 years old. At no point since she's been an adult, from 18 to 35, has she ever indicated in any way, shape, or form that she was a victim, that it was her, that she sides with Sparkle. Rashana, her mother and her father, have behaved consistently since 2002, signed sworn documents in court. It is not Rashana on the tape. They terminated their relationship with Sparkle. They still do not have a relationship with Sparkle. Why does Sparkle keep telling a 35-year-old woman she's a victim when that 35-year-old grown woman has said, behaved, in court documents, signed legal documents to say she is not a victim? She's never gone to the police. She's never testified against Robert. She did not appear in Surviving R. Kelly. Rashana herself did not go to Kim Fox and say, I am a victim. How did she get to Kim Fox? They manipulated, brainwashed, cajole.
And at that time, you and R. Kelly were good.
We were good, but I hadn't seen Robert. I was away from him. You know what I mean?
happened with, okay, so when you did put out your project, right, which did well, what happened after that?
So Robert had, we were actually working on the second album. Woman's Threat, his song, that's actually my song.
Wow.
So yeah, I recorded 3 songs on my second album before asking to be released from him. He finally, you know, let me go.
Why did you ask to be released?
Because it wasn't a good space with he and I no more. He was inserting himself in my personal life. He didn't want me to have a boyfriend. You know what I mean? Then there was an incident where I had told someone, one of the other artists that he had, that he was only taking me to Interscope. He got pissed off at that with me. So those 2 things, I was just like, look, this ain't a good space. And actually, before the first album came out, there was a big meeting because Robert said he was taking my deal away from me.
What?
Yeah.
Why?
So he did, because I had a boyfriend and because I had told this person that, you know, I was the only person going to Interscope. And he was pissed.
Damn.
So there was a big meeting. Barry Hankerson, Robert, I brought my parents. I'm grown now, right? I'm over 21, right? And the meeting happened at the Hyatt out at the O'Hare airport area in Chicago. And a couple of my other family members also came to pray. We sitting there. Robert's trying to get, you know, Barry Hanker's trying to get us back on track, you know, everything, you know, see if this can happen, if the album's going to come out or what have you. The killer for me.
One day I was barbecuing and I needed matches. I looked in the kitchen drawers, didn't find any. I looked in the drawers in the dining room area, the top drawer, felt around. Something was scratching my hand as I did that. I looked, there were pictures. They were stacked in the middle. I pulled them out and looked at them. Yes, I was being nosy. On the pictures, I saw Sparkle. She's the only person I recognize. And 4 other females on a mattress. They were naked. It looked as if they were engaging in group sex, menage a trois. Robert was not visible in the picture. I assume he was the one taking them. And it appeared to me that maybe one day he was looking at the pictures, he heard Drea coming, and then just stuffed them in the drawer. If I saw those pictures, I'm certain Drea saw those pictures. So she well, you don't suspect at that point. Drea knew he had something going with Sparkle. And that's why when she saw on the camera that Sparkle was at the door, she knocked and made an excuse to come out of her room because she wanted her presence known. She wanted to make sure that Sparkle saw that she was there. I had seen Drea do that several times. Sparkle came to the house with a see-through skirt on the day she came with the other female. The skirt was so see-through, I saw that she had on black panties when she walked away. They went from room to room to room. It was as if she had confronted Robert about him having someone living at the house, and he wanted to show her, no, nobody's here. You can come over. So Sparkle was walking in the front, room to room, looking as if she was looking for evidence of something. You don't do that with your boss. You do that with someone that you're fucking. She felt she was going to be the First Lady of Rockland. When she found out he was married, she left, and she wanted Rashana to leave and her other family members to leave. Her brother-in-law was playing guitar. She wanted everybody out of loyalty to leave with her. When they refused, she was angry at everybody. Robert, Drea, Rashana's parents. She was pissed. She brought them to Robert. She felt they were being disloyal by staying when she wanted to leave. That's why she blew up. That's why she tried to destroy Robert. She says she walked away because of business issues. The first time I saw Sparkle at Robert's house, the doorbell rang. Robert went and answered the door. Sparkle rushed in. She approached the kitchen first as if she ran the house, as if she had a right to rush into his home, as if she owned it, as if she was looking for evidence of something. She had her arms crossed. She saw me. She rolled her eyes. Robert introduced us. I extended my hand to shake her hand, and she just mean mugged me, rolled her eyes, and walked off. That's when she and Robert began proceeding up the stairs. She was looking in every room as if she was looking for evidence that another female was there. She, along with this other female who came around the piano, and they all three walked upstairs. They were going from room to room. So it's as if he was showing her every room to show her nobody else was there. That particular day, Drea went out to her mother's house because when I saw her the next day, I knew that Robert had Sparkle over. So I wanted to see where Drea was. So I asked her, "Where were you yesterday?" She said, "I was at my mother's house." So I knew Robert waited until Drea was over her mother's, told Sparkle to come over because he didn't want Sparkle to know that Drea was there. Once Sparkle did find out, that's when she ended her relationship with Robert. And she expected her family to leave with her. She brought Rashana, her brother-in-law, and other family members that she was trying to sign to his label. I know Rashana was in a group working for him at that time. So because Sparkle terminated her relationship with Robert based on he's married to Drea and has a kid, she expected out of loyalty for her family to leave with her. They didn't. That's what the basis of this big meeting was, with her parents, her other family members. Why would you have a meeting with your boss, first of all, out at a hotel, and secondly, with all your family members in tow? It was personal. It was, she was fucking Robert. She found out Robert was married with a kid. She wanted to walk away, and because she brought her family onto his label, she wanted them to walk away too. When they refused to leave their record deal, that's when she got angry. That's when she blew up. And a few months later, that's when she made the accusation that it was her niece on a tape.
My family's a musical family. Let me see if I can put them in there.
Get everybody
and you know, let them be stars like he was about to make me. You know, so I introduced my niece. She, you know, my sister and my brother-in-law brought her down. I didn't just throw her to the wolves. You know what I mean? So I introduced her correctly. Then I introduced other nieces and nephews. You know what I'm saying? They're musical. They had some success.
Gotcha.
Overseas, and you know, I want to introduce them. And then my brother-in-law, my niece's father.
Right.
He's a dope guitarist. I was begged Robert to listen to him. You know, he came down and he's on a few of his albums playing. You know what I mean? So I was trying to spread the love through the family. I wanted to give, I wanted to give more to my family and bring them along with what God had blessed me with. So
this is where Sparkle says she brought all of her family to work at Rockland Records, Robert's new label under JAYZ. Why would you do that if you barely know this man? Why would you do that if you have only been a background singer and you're a new artist? You do that when you believe because you're having sex with this man, because you're engaging in group sex, menage a trois, doing everything sexually you can to become his wife and have a child with him. You've left your husband for this man. Now you feel once your album is out, you can bring your family around and create your own environment at Rockland Records where you will be the queen. She believed bringing her family around was her right because she felt she was in a position, because of her sexual relationship with R. Kelly, she believed she was going to be his bride. She was going to marry him. Then she found out he was already married to Drea and he already had a baby. That's what broke up the relationship. That's why she walked away on her second album deal.
Somebody knocking. And didn't respond to it again. It kept on. Like, it just kept on. And I'm
So
like,
she was in the room and
in
she was
her
knocking to
bedroom.
get out. Was
Yes.
the door locked and he had to unlock it?
no, it wasn't locked.
She just
She
knows
just
to
had
ask
permission to
permission.
come. And I was, when he said, yeah, and come on, I'm looking at him like this. You a piece of work. My words. You a piece of work. How dare you? How dare you? And he just, I'm like, that shit ain't funny. It ain't funny.
This is when Sparkle found out Drea was living in the house with Robert. Robert and Drea married in 1996, February. And she obviously was living in the house. Joanne was born March of 1997. I worked in the home. So I know that no one knew that they were married except his inner circle. And because the world did not know Robert was married, the record label did not want that out because they felt it would hurt his record sales. He was promoted as a sex symbol of R&B. So no one could know that he was married. When people came by the home, Robert would ask Drea to go to her room. Now, her room was like a suite at the Four Seasons. It had a king-size bed. It had a full-screen television, a mini fridge where she kept food, and it had its own private bathroom inside of there. So there was no reason for Drea to even be knocking when Robert had company. She also had a monitor on the TV. Robert had cameras around the house to protect the property. So anytime the doorbell rang, you can turn the television to a particular channel and you can see who's at the door. I know habitually Drea would look to see who was coming in the house, and this is my summation of what happened. Drea looked on the television. She saw that it was Sparkle. She suspected something was between Robert and Sparkle. So instead of staying in her room, she knocked and pretended she needed to get something out of the refrigerator. Now, her refrigerator was fully stocked, so there would have been no reason for her to even come down in that area. Him having Sparkle there and Sparkle seeing Drea is what ignited the huge blow up that they had. Sparkle felt like she was his main girl. She was going to be the first lady of Rockland Records. You heard her say she brought her family around. Nieces, nephews, cousins, brother-in-law. She brought everybody around. And she told people she was going to be the only person going to Rockland Records with him. She felt she was the first lady of Robert's record label. I saw pictures of her doing group sex and menage a trois with other females, and I saw her come by the house with another female and go into the master bedroom with Robert when one day when Drea was not there. So there's no question that Sparkle thought she was the number one person in his life. She had left her husband for Robert, but most importantly, she thought she was going to marry him and have his child. When she found out Drea was living in the house this day, by Drea coming out, that's what caused the blow up. And that's what caused her to leave him and the record label. She was on her first album. Why would you walk away from that based on some petty argument? You're a first-time artist. He's the hottest producer in the game. It was personal. She thought she was going to be his wife and have his child because she was fucking and sucking, doing group sex, menage a trois, everything she could to get to that position of wife. And the position was already filled. That's why she blew up. That's why she left his record label. That's why she went off on her own. Because she found out he was married to Drea and had a baby. That was 1999. The very next year, within a few months, she began saying her niece was on a tape.
R. Kelly ever strange to you? Like, did he ever come on to you?
You know, Robert, of course, he liked me. You know, he's a handsome guy. But I didn't want to mix-match those lines, so to speak. You know what I mean? I'm there to do a job. Mm-hmm. I'm there to get my career on thereafter the AALIYAH situation. You know, from 92 to 96, I had no real interaction with him at all. So I don't know anything that was going on. I didn't go on no tours with him. Mm-hmm. You know, I didn't do any of that. But, you know, in 96, I was, you know, asked to come back and do some more backgrounds for him, I thought. And 2 songs in, he was like, yo, he came in the booth, yo, we gonna work on your stuff now. You know what I mean? And then after that, working on my stuff, then I introduced the family.
Right.
So you never had a relationship with R. Kelly?
No.
That type of relationship?
No.
Mm-hmm.
We had a business, but me and Robert were real tight. We were really cool, like family, I thought.
When we left, we were working on our album as a public announcement. Mm-hmm. And we got a deal with Atlantic Big Beat. Mm-hmm. After that, we started working on Sparkle, which was one of the original members' wife.
Right.
Earl. Mm-hmm. Right? So we did it, and I planned on like saying, okay, well, let's just go this way with it. Earl wanted to take it to Kels, to Rob. I was like, it's not a good idea. I don't think this is a good idea. So at that point, he kept saying, no, it's a good idea. I'm married to her. It's good. We're going to get paid. Blah, 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 blah.
Right.
I'm like, okay. So we did our demo. All of that. Did the demo, everything. I took it to him. He said, yeah, it's hot. But I got to do it myself. I was like, what you mean? He like, I have to produce it myself. Y'all can't have nothing to do with it.
Right.
And I was like, okay. And me knowing him, because they're gone now. Rick and Earl are gone. So I'm seeing him on an everyday basis, how he gets down. So I'm like, so I go back to Earl and I say, hey man, this is not going to end up well. If she goes down here and does this with him, it's over. Everything.
Right.
And Earl was like, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. You know what I'm saying? This is my wife. It's going to be good.
Yeah, it ain't no good.
Soon as she went down there, she never went back. That's why she don't mention him.
Wow.
She never went back.
Wow.
And and then at that point, it was like he was destroyed. Just like you see in my story, he was destroyed. Wow. Because he didn't understand like why his wife would actually do that. But Rob told me, he said, hey, when she come down here, she got to sleep on this couch for 30 days to do her album. But she started off doing background vocals for AALIYAH album. Because he was creating that at that time.
Right.
Oh man, Mr. R. Kelly. You're gonna find out that him and my wife Sparkle was messing around was my greatest downfall.
So get it understood, boy. I am from the hood, boy. Came up from the dirt. Self-made hustler, I'm a beast. I'm a beast. I'm surrounded by all these devil mouths. They talking about kales. Some say I came from heaven, but I rose up from hell. And every
this project together.
I just say, like, you know, we had the you know, the Fiesta remix and Not Guilty, you know, and doing that and hearing how those two singles came out. We would always toss the idea back and forth, but it was just an idea, like, we can do a whole album together. And we creative people, so creative people create. You know, just the idea of having a whole album with myself and R. Kelly was just, see how it would come out was just an amazing prospect. So we just, we put it together, man. We started coming up and here we are.
Right. It's like mad scientists, you know, in the basement. It's like mad scientists in the basement, you know what I'm saying? We, Jay is real creative, I'm real creative, and it's like, you want to get together and mix potions, you know what I'm saying, just to see what happens. That's how the lights were created, you know, the piano and cameras, you know what I'm saying? That's how all this happened, you know what I'm saying? Somebody got together and, you know, and said, let's see how this works, let's see how that works. And that's how great things happen.
Next question.
Hi, will you guys be touring together?
Best of Both World Tours come to a city near you soon. Definitely tour together with the show. We right now
Best
we're
of Both Worlds, t-shirts, draws, condoms, everything, burgers.
We gonna put the show together, just one set. But you know, let you just a real, like, it's all the way together. It's not gonna be two sets.
Right.
Just one long set. You know, he's doing the songs that you know, people love him for. I'm doing, you know, songs from my album, and we doing songs from the Best of Both Worlds album, and, you know, giving people what they came to see.
Right.
My name is Barry Hankerson was fired January of 2002. Robert did the Winter Olympics, February of 2002, and the Best of Both Worlds was to be released March of 2002. The only person that would know the release date for the album, The Best of Both Worlds, the tour schedule, the anticipated touring dates, the dates for the Winter Olympics, would be the person that worked on those deals, the manager. Demetrius Smith stated in his book that a guy named General got in touch with him and wanted to get in touch with Barry Hankerson. He said that Barry didn't want anything to do with the guy, and then later in the book he said Barry was producing the guy. Demetrius also stated on the telephone to me that Barry Hankerson had hired him to work with him after Demetrius was fired from working with Robert and after Barry was fired. I found that curious because Demetrius really has no experience, and he only worked for Robert a brief period of time. He stole money from Robert. He had been in and out of prison for breaking into people's homes, selling drugs, robbing major department stores. Why would Barry hire him? Why would Barry work with General, who called Demetrius and said he stole R. Kelly's tapes? Robert told me that Barry Hankerson, Sparkle, Demetrius, and General all worked together, stole the tapes, tried to extort money from him, and proceeded to destroy his career based on personal vendettas.
You know what I'm saying? This is not Disneyland. This album is not Disneyland. So, you know, it's up to the parents out there, you guys out there, to train your kids and bring them up the way you should. I'm doing mine like that, so you guys should do yours.
Check. Hi, I'm Calvin Terrell with Sister to Sister magazine. There's certainly been the climate in R&B and certainly in rap, one of competitiveness, both in the studio, on stage, and out of the studio. Do you hope that your collaboration will set a trend for more unity among artists?
I hope our collaboration set a trend for more unity as black people on the whole. You know what I'm saying? You got a cab company, and I got a cab company. We fighting for the same money. You know, we maybe we could join forces and you know, be much more profitable. You know what I mean? And I mean that's why this panel is here, and that's why we have the support of Russell and Andre and Johnny C. You know what I mean? You know what I'm saying?
UPN 9, Julia Chavez. My question is, the best of both worlds. Who came up with this project idea and who came up with the title of it?
See, you trying to separate us already. Both of us.
All right, that's great.
I don't even remember.
Who wrote most of the music on this?
Both of us.
So it's totally equal.
Both of us.
No one's getting more credit, I guess.
Now, see, there we go.
I'm not trying to say that.
No, I'm just messing with you. But both of us.
I was at Track Studio with Robert early 2000. We were in the room and he got a phone call. And he went outside in the hall to take the call. It was quiet for a few minutes. And then I started hearing yelling, cursing. It sounded as if something hysterical was happening. So I looked out the peephole in the door, and I could see Robert standing in the hall, leaning against the wall with the cell phone up to his ear. So he was talking to someone on the phone, and I couldn't hear the other person's side of the conversation, but I could hear Robert cursing them out and yelling, and I won't discuss the nature of the call, but I will say he was being threatened. And I could tell very clearly whoever had called him was threatening him, and he was, from what I could hear, responding to that threat. He ran out of the studio immediately. He was in the middle of a session at the time, and he knew that I was there. He bolted out of the studio without going back into his session or without saying anything to me. I waited and waited and waited, and then finally I called the desk, and they told me that he had rushed out of the studio. So that was the day that he got the call. That was the moment that he got the call about threats to extort money from him. Barry Hankerson began managing Aaliyah, and he got her in the movie Romeo Must Die. It was released March of 2000. She also did music for the movie. After that, she was in Queen of the Dam, that filmed the summer of 2001, and it was set to be released February of 2002. Barry Hankerson was fired January of 2002. I believe in large part because Robert is the franchise. He is the artist. Barry Hankerson was his manager. Aaliyah, as Barry Hankerson's niece, was under that label. And then Barry separated Aaliyah from that, and he was managing her separately. By getting her 2 movie roles and not getting Robert movie roles, I believe that created reason for Robert to terminate him, along with other reasons. There may have been some financial misappropriation of monies, but I believe the impetus for the release was Aaliyah appearing in Romeo Must Die, March of 2000, and then Queen of the Dam, released February of 2002. Barry was fired January 2002. Jim DeRogatis receives a tape February 1st, 2002, which he's supposed to turn over to the police, but in court records, it was stated that he made copies. He interviews Sparkle February 4th, 2002. How would Jim DeRogatis know who's in the tape and who's related to even know to call and interview Sparkle? All of that was a setup. Robert is to perform at the Winter Olympics in Salt Lake City, February 8th, 2002. The Best of Both Worlds is scheduled to be released March 9th of 2002, but it is delayed because of the release of the tape, and you see that JAYZ and R. Kelly did a press conference March 26, 2002. Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell were both at the press conference. They were working in partnership with JAYZ and R. Kelly on all of the things around the album and the tour that would be mutually beneficial for all. When Robert fired Barry, Barry is the only person who would have known the release date for the album, the tour schedule, and the date for the appearance at the Winter Olympics, because as manager, he would have been the one to schedule those things. February 4th, 2002, Jim DeRogatis of the Chicago Sun-Times interviews Sparkle. It was transcribed from a audio recording, so you see tape 2, side 1, and the minutes that it was. It states, on February 1st, 2002, the Sun-Times anonymously received a copy of the videotape. February 1st. He's interviewing Sparkle February 4th, which is 3 days later. He states in the interview, Q would be Jim DeRogatis, I just want to know BH is partially motivated by he's tired of seeing young girls get hurt. A, which is Sparkle, I'm sure a lot of people would agree. Q, which is DeRogatis again, but is it partly that BH wants revenge for the whole Aaliyah thing? Sparkle, I don't know. I'm sure he would tell you. He'd have no problem telling you. Jim DeRogatis, he never has. I'm sure that tape came by BH, not directly. He's wondering about the police investigation. In his own notes, Jim DeRogatis first told the police he got the tape anonymously, but clearly he knows the tape came from Barry Hankerson. Sparkle knows the tape came from Barry Hankerson because the conversation is going as if everybody is aware of what's going on. He asks her, when did you break away from R. Kelly? She says late 1999. They signed a release agreement in 2000. He then asks her, you got a call from who? I don't know. But you let somebody in your apartment to show you a sex tape of a minor, and you don't know who it was. I don't know what they wanted, if they wanted money. I'm assuming that was their MO. So somebody calls you, you assume they're trying to extort money. They say they have a sex tape, and you allow them to come to your house. Jim DeRogatis asks, was it packaged to the attorney? Sparkle answers, could have been. Barry Hankerson was married to Gladys Knight. They had 2 sons, Shanga and Jomo. Barry Hankerson went on to manage R. Kelly, and he then managed Aaliyah and worked with Missy, Timberland, Toni Braxton, Tank, and many others. He has been in lawsuits with artists that he's had under his label for misappropriation of money, for various disputes in their contract. He had a lawsuit with Tony Braxton, a lawsuit with J-Dub, a lawsuit with Timbaland. He has been R. Kelly's manager since the beginning of his career. Robert fired him January of 2002. Tony Braxton filed a lawsuit against Barry Hankerson and his record label, Black Round Records, and his son Jomo, who was partners with him, for monies that she felt were owed her in the amount of $375,000 and other monies and misappropriation of funds. A producer by the name of J-Dub sued Barry Hankerson, and Black Round Records says he's owed over $400,000 in royalties for his work on AALIYAH's album and Tank's album, and was seeking $200,000 in compensatory damages. Timbaland also sued Barry Hankerson and Black Round Records for, again, monies owed, suspect business practices, and both producers were suing for their participation in AALIYAH's work, the rights to that work, and dissemination of the work. And that's why AALIYAH's music has not been released, because it's tied up in lawsuits by several people who are claiming ownership of the material and rights to different percentage of royalties with AALIYAH's music, her albums, and songs that they wrote and produced. One evening, Demetrius Smith called me, and he had been smoking some ooh-wee and drinking, so he was very talkative, and he was revealing a lot of details that he did not put in his book and that he had not told many people. That's when he told me Drea was on a sex tape, and he had seen the tape. Carrie had it. She was playing with her clit with her leg behind her head and corkscrewing on Robert's dick. What he said that was most important was Barry Hankerson and Daryl McDavid have all of Robert's money. And he went on to say that he was still working with Barry Hankerson and Daryl McDavid. He was a little high. I understood that, so I remained quiet to get him to tell me more. When we got off the phone, he called me at 2 o'clock in the morning and left me a message, paranoid that I recorded that call. And he wanted to make certain I did not have permission to record any call of his. The next morning, 7 a.m., he called me again. We exchanged some words. And I hung up the phone. What I was 100% clear on is Demetrius Smith told me that he worked for Barry Hankerson. He still talks to Daryl McDavid. He has a good relationship with both. And he stated Barry Hankerson and Daryl McDavid have all of Robert's money. I don't believe he meant they have it legally. He also stated that in his book that he sent me, a guy named General is the one that broke into Rob's locker, stole the bag full of tapes. He's the one that put General in touch with Barry. Barry began managing General, and Demetrius and General transported the sex tapes across state line to New York to get them to Barry. And all of that is what led to the takedown of R. Kelly. Sparkle, Demetrius, General, Barry Hankerson formed a band of thieves to steal the tapes, to disseminate the tapes, to extort money from Robert, and if Robert did not pay the money, then they would destroy his career. All based on a personal vendetta.
You shouldn't just run to social media first to cancel somebody out or to expose someone. And then if you are going to do that, make sure you expose yourself first. Deal with yourself first. So,
yeah. Here's a rumor I heard, though. Did you and R. Kelly ever date?
Not at all.
Okay.
Never dated. I dated someone that was around, but I never dated Robert at all. Mm-hmm.
Thank you for clearing that up.
Before you expose someone, expose yourself. She's asked in every interview, were you involved with R. Kelly? Every single time she lies blatantly. No, I was not involved with him. I dated someone around him. She was married to Earl in public announcement, Robert's band member. She left Earl to go fuck R. Kelly. I saw her in pictures doing menage a trois group sex. She came over to his house in a see-through skirt with black panties on with another female and went into the master bedroom. I assumed to do menage a trois. She took dick in every hole, ate pussy by the pound. Yes, I think you were involved with R. Kelly. Expose yourself first before you go exposing someone else. It's not that she was involved with him. It's not that she even left her husband for him. It's that she habitually lies about it. It's that she has brought her family around him because she did not know he was married to Drea with a child. She thought she was going to be the first lady of Rockland Records. She fucked, sucked, took dick in every hole, ate cooch by the pound, found out he was married, and lost her fucking mind as a result. She terminated her relationship with him over that. Left her record deal. She was a one-hit wonder. The only song she had that was a hit was the one he wrote, produced, starred in. She even rode in his Range Rover in the videos. That's his candy apple red Range Rover that she was driving. She comes to the house. Drea knocks simply because Drea wants her presence known. Robert is not aware that he's being played on both sides of this. Sparkle gets pissed. She walks away and she wants her family to walk away too, and they refuse to. She considers everybody disloyal, everybody has betrayed her, and she's going for blood. Expose the shit.
Yeah, so let me share that with you.
Okay, give them, because they didn't see that part.
Yeah, so I hear a knocking, and we're watching the playoff game, and I'm looking around like, okay, nobody ain't looking or saying nothing. Kept knocking. I'm like, yo, Robert. I said, somebody knocking. You don't hear that? So I'm thinking it's the door. And he was like, just kept looking at the TV. I'm like, it kept knocking. I'm just like, look. And you hear somebody knocking. So he goes, yeah. And then she peeps out and says something. He was like, come on.
Can I get something to eat? I think you said. Can I come down or something?
She said.
Andreas asked for permission.
Yeah, she's asking for permission to come down to eat.
Right.
So she comes down, grabs her food, and goes back up. And I'm staring him like this. And I say, you know what? You a piece of work. How dare you? And he's turned this way. I said, that S ain't funny. I said some other stuff, but I can't say it on here. But yeah, I was like, dude, what you on? People don't know this. I called DCFS on my sister and them because I had gotten calls from two separate people in Robert's camp stating something ain't right, yo. You something ain't right. You need to look into this. Your niece is down here by herself. What's going on with your sister and your brother-in-law?
Right.
I called DCFS along, me and two of my good girlfriends in my crib. We called DCFS. They went out and investigated them. This is prior to the tape, okay? Anybody knowing about a tape, even me. And I did that with my girlfriends, and they went and investigated. They came to my parents' house and, questioned my sister and my brother-in-law, and they basically told them, DCFS, that no, nothing was wrong. They didn't see anything, and if they had, he would get dealt with.
Ask you this: what is your relationship right now with your niece and your sister? Because now with the DocuSeries being in the forefront and everyone in the world talking about it, have you guys had a conversation? Are they upset with you?
Okay, so I was estranged from my family for 10 years when I came out in '01. Okay, so 2011, our parents' 50th anniversary came around, and we gave them a big shindig, and to celebrate them. And that's when we came back, into each other's lives. And now, my mom passed away in October, so we buried her. Then the trailer comes out 2 days later after we buried my mom. So we're still grieving, and the trailer's out. I hadn't had a chance to tell them, because if I had told them while she was sick, we wouldn't have been able to do this for my mom and put her away like we did. They would be pissed off at me or whatever. So right now, I haven't spoken to them. And of course, they're pissed because they think I'm the one that keeps bringing.
She states she's at Robert's house. She sees Drea. Drea knocks. She comes out, and she says to her boss, who she has no relationship with, "Nigga, you a piece of work." She begins to chastise him. Why? Because Drea is in the bedroom and she knocks and says, "I need to get something to eat." That's not cause for your employee to get in her boss's face. The fact that she's at his house, they watching the playoff games, she says Drea knocked, came out, got something to eat, and went back upstairs, and that was cause for her to curse Robert out, tells you it was personal. I'm fucking you, I'm sucking dick, taking dick in every hole. She was menage a trois, group sex, eating cooch by the pound, and you got some other bitch at your house? That's what caused her to blow up. Then she says she called DCFS on her sister, her brother-in-law, and Rashana because she told them to leave with her and they refused. She justified it by saying someone told her Rashana was in the studio by herself. If she's an artist on his label and she's recording, and this is 1999, at that point, Rashana's 16 years old, going on 17. Why wouldn't she be by herself? So there was no cause for alarm. She's an artist. She's recording her album. Why would you call DCFS? Then she states her family did not fuck with her. She left Robert's label, but no one else in her family left. No one else in her family testified with her. She has 6 siblings. 1 brother sided with her. Everybody else didn't. Rashana has grandparents on her father's side, her mother's side. Aunts and uncles on the father's side, the mother's side. Cousins, nieces, nephews, all types of extended family on her father's side and her mother's side. Only 2 people, Sparkle and 1 brother, aligned against Val, Greg, and Rashana and said it was Sparkle. Everyone else in the family, including grandparents, not only sided with Val, Greg, and Rashana, refused to testify, and those that did testify said it wasn't her, and they alienated Sparkle. They stopped speaking with Sparkle. They all stopped fucking with her. She says herself, they didn't speak to her until 2011, and then when she got with Surviving R. Kelly again, She didn't even tell them. If it's about Rashana, why wouldn't you talk to Val, Greg, and Rashana about that? Dream Hampton wants you, but she doesn't want Rashana, Val, Greg. She doesn't call the person who it's supposed to be centered around, or the mother and the father. And you participate in it. You don't tell them about it because she states, I didn't tell them about it, but it was the trailer started to play and they found out, and then they went back to not speaking with me. So that says she signed with Surviving R. Kelly and Dream Hampton, did not tell Rashana, did not tell Val and Greg, didn't tell anyone in her family. And yet it's supposed to be about Rashana, who at that point is 35 years old. She claims she's fighting for Rashana. But you don't tell Rashana Surviving R. Kelly is going to have you on there, and the subject is Rashana, and you don't try to convince Rashana to come on there. You appear without even notifying Rashana, without convincing Rashana to talk about it and come forward. And then keeps it from them until it's already...
After that, we started working on Sparkle, which was one of the original members' wife. Right. Earl. Right? So we did it, and I planned on like saying, okay, well, let's just go this way with it. Earl wanted to take it to Kev's, to Rob. I was like, it's not a good idea. I don't think this is a good idea. So at that point, he kept saying, no, it's a good idea. I'm married to her. It's good. We're going to get paid. Blah, 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 blah. Right. I'm like, okay. So we did our demo. All of that. Did the demo, everything. I took it to him. He said, yeah, it's hot. But I got to do it myself. I was like, what you mean? He like, I have to produce it myself. Y'all can't have nothing to do with it. Right. And I was like, okay. And me knowing him, because they're gone now. Rick and Earl are gone. So I'm seeing him on an everyday basis, how he gets down. So I'm like, so I go back to Earl and I say, hey man, this is not going to end up well. If she goes down here and does this with him, it's over. Everything. Right. And Earl was like, no, it's going to be good. It's going to be good. You know what I'm saying? This is my wife. It's going to be good. Yeah, it ain't no good. Soon as she went down there, she never went back. That's why she don't mention him. Wow. She never went back. Wow. And and then at that point, it was like, he was destroyed. Just like you see in my story, he was destroyed. Wow. Because he didn't understand like why his wife would actually do that. But Rob told me, he said, hey, when she come down here, she got to sleep on this couch for 30 days to do her album. But she started off doing background vocals for AALIYAH.
Oh man, Mr. R. Kelly. You're gonna find out that him and my wife Sparkle was messing around was my greatest downfall.
Jim DeRogatis has lied to the public. He stated he received a tape anonymously. Yet in his notes, he states very clearly he got the tape from BH. He knows who he got the tape from. He's very clear who he got the tape from. He's had conversations. And BH, who is Barry Hankerson, has been feeding Jim DeRogatis information on this. And that has been the driver behind Jim DeRogatis getting involved. He had no dog in the fight. He didn't know anyone. The only way he could stand so strongly on a position is someone had to have been working with him and giving him information, which is illegal on Jim DeRogatis' part. You got a tape, you made copies of it, that was illegal. You disseminated the information. You stated in an article, BH is the one that gave you the tape, yet publicly you said you got it anonymously. You then released the tape to the police, and 3 days later you interview Sparkle, which says you were told by someone to call Sparkle. How would you know to even reach out to her to interview her? How would you then discuss anything about her in an article when at that point everything was breaking news? It confirms it was a setup, and it was a ring of individuals working together to bring down R. Kelly for personal reasons. Sparkle was angry because she left her husband and thought she was going to marry him. He was already married. Barry got fired, Demetrius got fired, and Jim DeRogatis did not get the access to R. Kelly for interviews that he thought he should get. All of them were working to bring down the career of R. Kelly based on personal vendettas. And the Best of Both Worlds album and tour was sabotaged by this effort. Sparkle says that her family did not know of her participation in surviving R. Kelly. She didn't tell them. They didn't find out until the trailer was released, and then they stopped speaking to her again, feeling she was constantly reactivating this story. That tells us several things. It says Dreamhampton built a story around Sparkle concerning the 2008 trial where Robert was acquitted and is by law innocent. She wanted to reactivate that, so she brings Sparkle in. She either did not reach out to Rashana and her parents, or she did and they refused to testify. So she wanted to reactivate that story using the same bitter, angry person that began the rumors to begin with. That is fraud. You are talking about a sex tape. We heard her in her interview saying Rashana was on a sex tape as if she was there, Dreamhampton. And then she doesn't have Rashana's participation. She doesn't have the parents' participation. That is illegal. Dreamhampton would have no idea who was on a sex tape. And if Rashana signed legal documents saying that was not her, then that's her legal response. Her parents legally responded. He was acquitted. Rashana was 35 at the time of surviving R. Kelly. At no point did she go to the police. At no point did she ever say anything negative about Robert. That means she has behaved her entire adult life. She is not a victim. She is not caught up in this takedown of R. Kelly, and she is not in agreement with Sparkle, to the point where she and her entire family had nothing to do with Sparkle. They ostracized Sparkle, alienated her, pushed her out of the family for her doing this. That is fraud on behalf of Dreamhampton, Surviving R. Kelly, and Lifetime. You put out segments on the 2008 trial giving the impression that it was Rashana when you did not have Rashana's participation in that. And the only person you had was Sparkle, who has lied to everyone for years and who had a personal vendetta against R. Kelly, her sister, her brother-in-law, and Rashana. All participants, Dreamhampton, all of Surviving R. Kelly, Sparkle, they broke the law. They committed fraud. They perpetuated fraud on the American people. They are criminals. The sex tape was released days before Robert was to appear in the Winter Olympics, and about a month before the Best of Both Worlds album was supposed to drop, and a subsequent tour followed. The only person that would have had that information on dates would have been the person involved in the negotiations, the manager. Barry was fired January. A month later was the Winter Olympics. A month after that was the Best of Both Worlds news conference and subsequent tour date discussion. This was a deliberate attempt to sabotage the career of R. Kelly. We heard from Jim DeRogatis in his newspaper article when he interviewed Sparkle. He claims he got the tape anonymously, yet somehow the tape was released. Somehow a tape got to someone and they contacted Sparkle. Jim DeRogatis claims he turned the tape over to the police, but in court documents it was stated that he made copies. So whoever got the tape made copies and began disseminating the tape. The only way you can give a name to a newspaper and a name to the police is you're in Robert's inner circle. To even be able to identify anyone on a tape or to place a name and say it's someone even though it's not them. So that was someone with a vendetta, because this wasn't about protecting anyone, it was about destroying R. Kelly. Sparkle finds out about Drea. She curses Robert out. The end of 1999, she wants out of her contract. The blow-up is so big, they have to have a meeting out at the airport. Her family's there, mother, father, relatives. You don't bring your family into a work situation. That tells you it was personal. And she was angry because she was leaving and the rest of her family was not going to leave. They were not going to terminate their relationship with Robert. Greg, at that time, Rashana's father, was playing guitar for Robert. Rashana was in a group. She was signed to his label, and some other relatives were working for him. They weren't terminating their working relationship with R. Kelly because Sparkle was mad. She is the one that brought them in. She was angry about that. She was pissed off. So she wanted revenge against everybody. 2000, she gets a release agreement with R. Kelly, so she's no longer on his label. Sometime between, she said before the tape came out, so that means either 2000 or 2001, she and some friends sat around calling DCFS on her sister and brother-in-law. Why? Because Rashana was still around R. Kelly. At that time, Rashana was 17 or 18 years old. In 2000, Rashana would have been 17. In 2001, Rashana would have been 18 years old. As an artist, she's singing background. She's got her group work that she's doing. Of course she would be at the studio. But it sounded personal. Sparkle didn't just call DCFS on her own. She involved two of her friends to do it, to create more of an urgent situation so they would go investigate. Rashana is 18 years old at that time. Why are you calling DCFS? More importantly, Sparkle was jealous. And that's a move of a jealous female. She's jealous that Rashana is still around Robert. She's jealous that all of her family is still around him. And she's pissed at everybody because they showed loyalty to Robert and not to her. And she's the one that brought them around. She was out for revenge, out for blood. She left her husband, Earl, to go fuck R. Kelly. She participated in group sex, menage a trois, did whatever, brought her family around, because she thought she was going to be the first lady of his label. And then she finds out he's already married with a kid. She was out for blood. Barry got fired. He was out for blood. Demetrius got fired. He was out for blood. He felt Robert owed him enormous amounts of money because he was there at the beginning of Robert's career, even though he added no value. In his mind, he should have gotten a larger percentage. So JAYZ, Russell Simmons, Andre Harrell, their work on the Best of Both Worlds album and subsequent tour was collateral damage. It was sabotage by a personal vendetta with Barry Hankerson, Sparkle, Demetrius, using a tape to bring down R. Kelly.
At the heart of the 14th Amendment is the definition of citizens in America. It is through this definition that all the rights we cherish are granted and defended.
The right to have rights.
And under the law, everyone in America gets equal protection.
Was made for you and me.
My fellow Americans, this is a problem which faces us all.
We talk about equality a lot in America. We talk about justice. The 14th Amendment was intended to make that vision real.
The 14th Amendment is a promise of equality for all.
No state shall make or enforce any law which shall abridge the privileges or immunities
of the citizens of the United States.
It says we are all deserving of empathy and dignity.
I'm scared, but I'm gonna stay. 'Cause I'm tired of running.
Nor shall any state deprive any person of life,
Liberty or property.
nor deny any person within its jurisdiction
The equal protection of the law.
I'm just gonna wait.
The founders wrote life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. They made that promise.
This fight is for a more perfect union.
When the second founders wrote the 14th Amendment, they put the word equal into the Constitution, another promise.
This is why we're here. To tell America's story. The story of the 14th Amendment.
I'm gonna be sad.